I'm Jason Allen, Senior Deputy Director for the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs, and welcome to Veterans Update. Today we're going to be addressing the topic of the Veterans Administration and the access for veterans to seek services in the healthcare area. Today we have representatives from that organization. Welcome, and it's nice to have you here today.
Thank you.
Can you first of all tell us a little bit about the background on how the healthcare system works at the VA? So how does that work? Do veterans come in and do they access the system?
In order to enroll
Right,
to receive
yeah.
health care? Well, what you have to do is you have to fill out an application for health benefits form. It's called a 1010-EZ.
Okay.
It's a 3-page application. You fill it out, patient demographics, insurance information, spousal dependents, and your financial year from the previous year, because that's what we run on, and also your discharge paper, your DD-214. Right. Once they send that in to us, then we process it within about 7 days, and then they get contacted of whether or not they're eligible for care, or we get an appointment set up for them. Wonderful. Right about 14 days to their desired date.
So it sounds like it's a relatively simple process.
It is, but it can be very intimidating. Most people, when they look at that application, they get overwhelmed. Okay. So I always tell them, take it block by block. Don't look at it and go, wow, this is more than I can handle. Then when they get to the financial portion, they tend to panic, get a little shook up. It's very straightforward. There's very clear, concise instructions that go along with each section. If they read that, then they can get through it pretty easy. Okay. There are multiple places that they can get the application, because that's one of the other big questions that we have. You can get it at the website, which is saginaw.va.gov. Okay. And on there's to the left of the screen, it says Forms, VA Forms. You can click on there, and then it says 1010-EZ. Click on there. You can either print it off, or you can fill it out on there and submit it online. Okay. When you send your application in, you always have to have the DD-214 with it, the discharge papers, or you'll end up receiving it back to complete it. Or you can mail it in. You can call into the local VA. Most of the calls are taken by Saginaw, which is a 1-800-406-5143.
Okay, we'll have that on at the end
And
of the show.
then they can just ask for eligibility, and the operator can transfer them over. We get their mailing information and answer any questions that they have, and we get those packets out to them.
So like the financial information, which you said, I know for a lot of our seniors and people that may have some challenges, yes. It's usually just probably like their income tax return.
It is. One of the things that they tend to forget, though, is that they get to claim their medical expenses. Sometimes on their income tax returns they don't do that, and so they're going to add up whatever they spent for both the husband and the wife for medical expenses for that previous financial year. A lot of the veterans don't understand the fact that they're including their spouse's income. Oh, okay. It's based on household income. Okay. So they tend to forget or leave it out, and we end up having to fix it later. But it is correctable. So if there are errors made and they discover it after they've sent it in, we can take care of that. Okay.
And then I know that in the state of Michigan we also have benefits through our county organizations, like our county counselors. They can help you fill some of those forms out.
Yes, they are very helpful. They're located in most of the courthouses. There's actually service officers that sit at the Saginaw VA Monday through Friday. There's different service organizations there every day.
That would be like the Purple Heart, the VFW, the
Marine
American
Coord
Legion.
League. Yeah. Yeah.
And those are the other part. And they have both contracts. Both organizations have, the counties and the veterans organizations have contracts with our office as far as providing services. And they're also another sort of way to help access that.
Makes it a little easier.
Now, there's always, if my understanding, there's always this problem with like the DD-214. Now, yes. I know in my new job, we've got the DD-214 records for a lot of the soldiers coming back, all the way back to World War II. And I know that we just lost our first World War survivor, so we no longer have that group. But it's fairly simple. They just send either to through their veterans organization. They can call our office to get those documents. Do you have access to those, or can you tell them how to do that?
We do not have access to it. That's one of the misconceptions. They believe that because we're part of the VA, can you just go online and get it? We don't have that access. That's private information. But we recommend that they go to the archives site online, or to a service officer, because that's intimidating as well, trying to do that. But when you do it online, you fill out that form and you print it and you sign it. Well, evidently there's a signature verification process. So
Okay.
I always recommend them to send a copy of that driver's license
Okay.
that verifies that signature, kind of cuts out that time
Sure.
lapse of them sending a
Oh, yeah,
letter.
that would make
Because
sense.
they'd get the letter back saying we need to verify your signature. Where if they do that up front, it'll increase that return
So that probably
time.
would save a couple, 3 weeks easy.
Yeah, it's. I've had veterans get it in as little as 10 days, which
Okay.
I find really amazing, but then most veterans say it's about 3 months.
That's what, when we had our briefing, and that's what they usually said, between 2 to 3 months to get their documents
Yeah.
put together.
But if they've recorded it at the county clerk's office,
Sure.
they can just go down and pick it up. And a lot of veterans forget that they've even done that
Right.
because it was an insignificant act a
Right.
lot of years ago.
Right.
So I always recommend that they check.
Right.
We're not allowed to call and ask. That's a privacy issue, but they are definitely, able to go and check at their local
Because I
courthouse.
know that the DD-214, we have a lot on record, and then we also all of our National Guard units are also required to put them in at the counties. And it's also, when you discharge out of the military, whether you're leaving from a Fort Bragg or a Camp Pendleton, then they also have that opportunity to determine where they want those records sent. Is that right?
They do.
Okay.
They do. A lot of them decide where they're going to end up and then change their mind. A lot of the boys change, they're going to come home to mom. Well,
Right.
then they decide, nope, I'm going to stay here. So they tend to have a little bit of trouble locating them once in a while. But they are given to them when they go through their
Sure.
PDRHA. So they can
And
get it at
which
that
is
point.
just for the nomenclature, that's their
Their post-deployment health
reassessment.
reassessment. Yeah,
Right.
and they do get them then. It's very important that they not lose them. That does happen. They'll lose their paperwork, but it's not real bad to get copies of it. It's just one of those hassles that nobody wants to go
No,
through.
I understand. Okay, so we have the paperwork, so that's the first step, is to kind of get the paperwork involved. Then the next step is that I understand over the last years we've seen a sort of an expansion of the medical side of the VA. And mind you, for our listeners, you're just representing the medical side. There's also you've got a whole group that does cemeteries. You have a group that does outpatient clinics for mental health services and a variety of other things, but you do the medical side. Now, I was reading in sort of that you have clinics throughout the state of Michigan, up north or in the Detroit area. What's the difference between like a VA center and then the clinics, and how does that sort of flow work?
Do you want to answer that one, Cindy?
Sure. The outpatient clinics offer medical services. For instance, primary care, mental health services. We offer home-based primary care services, physical therapy. Other services available through the medical centers would include inpatient care, ambulatory surgery, and specialty care.
Wow. So it's really a whole gambit of things.
It is, yeah.
Now, do you have, like, in the physical therapy area, for example, do you have a full-time physical therapist on?
We have full-time physical therapists on staff.
And on the ambulatory care, you help people sort of recover from these different injuries?
Different procedures from surgeries and so.
And so then we've gotten the paperwork filled out, and then do you do sort of the intake after you've got this, that you qualify? Do you go through a physical? Is that how that works?
What we do is we first get the veteran established with a primary care provider.
And that's one that you have here at like at the Traverse City or at
Yes.
the Grayling, or one maybe in the Detroit area?
Right. We have primary care clinics throughout Michigan. Bad Axe, Alpena, Gaylord.
Sort of all over. They're all over the state then, and that's amazing. As far as, and so that's the first step.
The first step is to get established with a primary care provider. That primary care provider can then help coordinate the care that you need.
Okay.
Whether it's specialty. Or
Okay, so you go through and you get your physical. And so then do they do like an inventory that you were in Vietnam and exposed to Agent Orange, or do they do like you were in an Air Force crew and had hearing problems? Is that part of that discussion?
Well, we're primary care.
Okay.
We're not there to do like a compensation and pension exam to make
That's a different area.
a determination.
Okay.
Right.
We usually discuss a little bit of that during the application process. If they're Agent Orange, we let them know that's what we call a self-initiated exam.
Okay.
They call our compensation and pension office
and
make appointments once their name is in the system. And this is a little different. For Agent Orange or any environmental factor that they may have been exposed to, They don't have to be eligible for care
Oh, I see.
to have
Okay.
that looked at. Their
Okay.
name just has to be in the system so that they can have notes put in
Okay.
and results from the testing that they have done.
Okay.
So that's a little bit different.
Yeah, because I saw, did they, in one of the briefings, they kind of expanded some of the coverage areas for Agent Orange, and I know that there's a variety of those environmental issues
Yes.
that are out there that veterans may be unaware of. Wow.
Yeah.
So that's a whole other sort of segment of the types of services that you provide.
Yes, yes it is.
Okay, so you've got then so it's fair to say you've got sort of your financial qualifications, and then there's the types of exposures that you may have had while you're in the military.
Or
And-
injuries. Yeah.
Or injuries. And so give me some examples of sort of some of the injuries that you would potentially be applicable there.
Okay, well if they come back, did you want to?
No, go ahead.
Okay, if they come back with injuries that they incurred while in combat, the recent returning veterans,
So that could be
it could be anything. It
right.
could be a rash that keeps coming and going,
Okay.
headaches. It could be, you know, a knee injury. They jumped off a truck or what
Okay.
have you. We recommend that they go and see a service officer and go through the proper steps of filing a claim and finding out if they're eligible.
The service officers, like the county or the
The veteran
veterans that are-
representatives, yeah.
And so that's part of that process. Then. Oh, okay. Then that makes a lot of sense as far as how that goes. Now, then the intake. So you get your primary. To go back to the commentary, so you get your primary care physician, and they do a sort of a physical to find out sort of what ailments you have, just a checkup, and then you get routed into those other services that are available.
Right, correct.
Now, what's the typical? Okay, we talked about it takes about up to 3 months to get your paperwork filled out, and if you do the job appropriately, it's a little bit. How long does it take to make an appointment with your shop after you get your paperwork done?
Access is available within 14 days.
Okay.
Depending on, if it's a routine visit, urgent visits, if need be, we are able to gain access within a couple of days or that same day.
So that gives, so they would call up after they get their paperwork and they would make an appointment with you.
Right.
And so wherever you're located, you would check in under the VA website is probably the easiest one to find out who's closest. And since we've got Saginaw, but I know that from what I've read, you've got Iron Mountain, you've got one in Ann Arbor, you've got a facility in the Detroit area, one maybe over in Battle Creek too.
Correct.
And so those are all, for the statewide network, those are all other places that they could access the health care.
Yes.
Now, what do you have on site? You rattled through all of these different treatments that you can give out at the facility in the Traverse City area. Do you have how many physicians do you have on site?
We have 2 MDs on staff. We have 2 nurse practitioners. All 4 of them provide primary care.